Today I'm going to be teaching you how to do some Python. In order for you to be able to do this, you're first going to need to do a few things. You're going to need to install Python from python.org, the website. And the second thing you're going to need to do is download Visual Studio Code. Now, with the text editors, you can do Sublime, Notepad, Atom, but I'm going to be you could even install an IDE. And IDE is an integrated development environment. It's used specifically for programming language. But you don't need to do that. We're just going to be using Visual Studio Code. It's the best code editor. I don't even say that with an opinion. I'm saying that as like the truth because it is. Um, it really is the best code editor. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to download it. Then you're going to need to get the terminal set up, and that would happen by you going up to the code and changing that a little bit. Well, there's a video out there on YouTube how to set up the Visual Studio Code for Python. I might be making a video on that. It's not that complicated. I do apologize that I did not explain that, but I will try to make a video about that. But once that's set up, you can go to extensions, download the Python extension. I have it already installed, as you can see, and we can get started with that. So the first thing what we're going to be talking about is variables. So what is a variable? Well, a variable is essentially a data type. Um, the value is really a data type. We're going to be talking about built-in data types later, but it's really um, sort of like a box, you could say, where you store a value. Like if I'm like x equals 6 or d equals 5, print x, right? And then I can run the code by pressing this, 6. And that's pretty cool. I can even say 6 and 5. And it also depends on how you phrase it, because if you're confused on what's going on and things like that, basically, you know, it depends on how you store it. So you could be like, x d or dx, and then you run it, and you have 5 and 6. That's really great, and you can try anything. I want you guys to do this with me. I want you guys to write 10 variables, and you can put anything inside them, but you should put numbers, but you can put anything, like d equals to 100, c equals to, and again, something you guys should know I'll be teaching you is if I were to do d equals to 100, d equals to 100, and then I do d equals to 1,000, nothing is going to be breaking here, and if I say print d, it's merely going to print 1,000, because as it goes down, you can redefine the variable. You could say d equals 100, but you want to change it to 1,000. You don't have to go back and change that. You could just do d equals to 1,000. It's a new value, whatever. So it changes like that. What I want you guys to create a bunch of value, and I'll give you some if you want. You can just use basic letters for this. Again, I'm using a video. So we're just going to be using numbers. We'll be talking about strings soon. But we'll just use integers, which is a data type. We'll be talking about that later a little bit too. So there we go. Now we can do print A, D, Z, B, E, just those, right? And it'll give you all that stuff. So this is something called a parentheses. You put that there if you want to print it. You do print, then the parentheses, and you put the variable inside. And yeah, so after you're done with that, you can move on. And now we'll be moving on to strings, which is a data type. So now we can do d is equal to programming, and we'll be like print d, right? And then bam, I'll print out in the terminal, because the terminal is where we get everything done. And we could do, you can make it bigger than that if you want. Make sure to put everything in the strings here in these quotations, and just write those quotations. You can write anything. You can write your name. anything you want. So I'll just write, and there we go. And then print D. As you can see, I'll be redefining everything. Python is amazing. There we go. You can make it as big as you want. There we go. So that's a string. Just to let you know, you usually, when you're creating a variable like this, you'd do something like this. Put it in the parentheses. So you'd be like, because you're creating a data type really, and you'd say x equals to Python is the best. And it would print everything in there. It just makes it easier. It creates everything to be, it makes everything less messy. Shout out to Lionel Messi, that soccer player, right? So yeah, that's what you would usually do, is put in those parentheses. So I want you guys to practice that. Create 6 variables with strings in them, and make sure to put them in the parentheses with those quotations. You can write anything you want. And yeah, I'll give you that time. You could pause the video if you want to. Go ahead. All right, if you're done with that now, we can move on. So we created those strings, and now we will be moving on to the next thing. And hold on 1 second. Okay, so now we will be talking about some basic math, really. So let's start off with multiplying. Oh, it was actually start off with adding. We could be x equals to 5 plus 5, print x, 10. Now, again, if you say, hey, I want them to print out the numbers 5, not that, of course we would do something like this. 5 and 5. And as you can see, it automatically puts it into those parentheses. It would just be easier if you did it like that, just to avoid the confusion. It just created that data type, 5 and 5. And we'll do math is equal to 50 plus 50. For numbers, sorry, I started to tell you this. For numbers, you usually don't have to put them in the parentheses and quotations, and you don't usually have to put them in parentheses unless you have to do some sort of complicated for loop or things like that. Usually, if you can do basic things like that, you could just leave it out there like that, because it's not going to really be that confusing. So we'll do print math. We defined the variable there, and we have 100. So that's great. Now you're probably wondering, okay, how about subtraction? So I'll create a variable called that, and we'll do 50 minus 100, print subtraction. And as you can see, it automatically suggests that variable, which is really cool with Visual Studio Code and all that, because it suggests things to you. It's really good. When you download the Python extension, it really helps. It suggests a lot of things. It's a really cool extension. It really helps out. So we'll print subtraction, and we have negative 50, of course. As you can do basic algebra and things like that. Now, if you want to do something like, of course, multiplying, you would do x equals to 50, not times 4, right? Because we usually use x as the variable, right? So that's why they define something they call something asterisk. It's on your, if you have a Mac, it's going to be up there on your keyboard, 50 times 10, print x. It's called asterisk. And it could be a little confusing, so what I'm going to ask you to do is use that asterisk a few times. Maybe create some variables like d equals to 100 times 100, print d, right? I want you guys to create 10 variables, and I want you guys to do 50 times 10, 100 times 10, anything like that. Yeah, I want you guys to create 10 variables like this, what I did, x equals z, z equals to whatever number times whatever number you want. And I'll just give give you an example, something like that, times negative 100, print z. There we go, we have negative 10,000 there. So I want you to create 10 of those. That's like your homework right now, ready to do. I'll let you pause the video. All right, now that you guys are done with that, we can move on. Now you guys are probably wondering, we did addition, we did subtraction, we didn't do division, but before we get into that, I'm going to teach you how to do exponents. You can do 5 times 2, print x, and that's it, is basically the exponent. So it does double asterisk really means 5 to the power of that number. Now I want you guys to do 10 of those, create some variables with that double asterisk, and you could be like, okay, I want to know what this what is 6 squared, right? I'll be like what is 6 squared? I'll do double asterisk to the power of 2. If I want, I know that we can change that. Oh, forgot to put that there. We could do it cubed, 216, which is really great. So now we're gonna move on a little bit with that. We can finally move on to division. And hold on one second. And just to explain to you guys why you're probably wondering what other code editors out there. I do apologize. Well, basically, we're using Visual Studio Code because it's the best code editor. There is Sublime Text, but that's usually, in my opinion, used for like web development and things like that. And you know, you don't need to do that. So we're gonna now do some basic math here. So x equals to 5, print. Oh no, we're gonna do something interesting like that. 25, 5, print x. There we go. And when we do, this is the division operator right here. This is what we're gonna use for division. It'll always bring us back. If you can see my mouse over here, 5.0. It'll always bring us back a decimal number. That's just the thing it does in Python, no matter what you do. If I do d equals to 500 divided by 5, print d, right? It'll bring me 100.0. It doesn't matter what you do. So I want you guys to create 10 variables doing something like that. You could do z equals to 50, 100 divided by 10, whatever you guys can put there. You can even do something that will bring you back a decimal automatically, like 10 over 100. Like print d, and now we get 0.1, and it brings us back a decimal number, obviously. And I want you guys to do that 10 times. You can use any amount of number you want, and you can go ahead and pause the video. All right, now that you're done with that, now I don't know if you guys remember this, but in I don't know if you guys remember the remainder. That should be back a long time ago. You learned that in 2nd grade. I don't know. Anyway, you could do the remainder if you want to find out 25 remain. You do x equals to 25. We'll do something like this: 36 remainder 5, print x. And it brings us back 1 because 5 goes into 36 that many times. And what does it leave us behind? It leaves us behind 1. And yeah, so yeah. And if you do d equals to 36 or 25 remainder 5, print d, you're going to get 0. Because, guys, remember that 5 goes into 25 5 times, and there's nothing left behind. So 5 goes into 36. Yikes. Totally had a brain malfunction there. But yeah, you guys can do that 10 times. And you guys can do that. I want you guys to do this 10 times. And then I want you guys to print that out, and you know, you could do anything remainder z equals to 100, you know, remainder 10, print z. How many times does it go into? What does it leave us behind, right? And it'll bring us back 0 because, and you know, that's because if this number goes into this thing um, whatever amount of times, what does it bring us behind? How many times it goes out? What does it back behind? It has to go into a number which will leave behind something, a remainder. So I want you guys to do that 10 times. You can get it 20 times. I would recommend 20, but you guys can do 10 times just to get it through your head to help you guys practice. That is your homework right now. You can go ahead and pause the video, do the remainder thing. And yeah, I'll wait for you then. All right, I hope you guys are done with that now. So we covered that, multiplying, dividing, remainder, exponent, subtracting, and we covered adding. Now we can go into some other things, such as, sorry about that, we can go into strings, bigger strings than that. Now we can go into something much more interesting, multiplying strings and things like that. So if you wanted to do Python is great equals to 50 times hey, what would happen is if you did Python is great and you printed that, it would say hey 50 times. So you guys can try that out yourself. You're defining the variable Python is great. And then, you know, that's the value is 50 times that. Usually, again, you put it into a set of parentheses there. And there we go. That's pretty cool. And you guys can do that a few times. I'll help you out a little bit there. I'll be doing something like that. Programming equals to 100. Okay, programming is great. Usually what we do, by the way, but I'm just doing this, is I'm defining the value. Python is great. But usually do something like this. That's just usually the way we do it. If we're going to be writing a sentence or something like that, Python is great. We usually do something like that. We'll put an underscore there, and then an underscore here, and things like that. And you guys can try that out too. 100 times Python. And remember, guys, make sure to put in inside the strings. And whoa, that will bring it out a little bit too much times. But you know, I'll just show you that. Print programming is great. Now here in the terminal, you might be like, oh man, I don't want to go all the way back there and then go all the way down. Is there a way we could just get rid of this? Yeah, we can. Just write clear here. You guys can try that out. If I do this again, I can just write clear and get that out. That is usually a Linux command, but you will be using a little bit of Linux, just a little bit, when you use Visual Studio Code to write your code. It's not complicated. All you got to do is clear. I can walk you through that, by the way, if you want me to. I'll probably make some basic Linux commands tutorial as well soon. But yeah, let's move on from that. So we just covered that. Make sure to write this 10 times. I want you guys to create a few values, maybe some sentences, something like that. Or you guys can create basic ones like with one letter, things like that. So we covered that. When you guys are done, you can go ahead and pause the video. All right. Are you guys done with that? I hope you are. Now we will be covering tuples. Yay. Now, what is a tuple? A tuple is a built-in data type. Not a built-in data type, it's a data type. It is something like this. 0, 1, 2, 3, print, 2, 1. There we go. I just created a tuple. If I did 2 equals 2, now this is the part where you guys are going to be really using parentheses. It's not like a this is the part where you're really going to be using it. Lists, tuples, arrays, functions, all these things. You're going to be using parentheses or square brackets or curly brackets, things like that. So I'm going to say something like 2, 4, 6, 8. And then I'm going to say print tup2. You guys can follow along. You guys can edit that code. There we go. And now I'm going to do something like tup2. I'm going to define my tup3 equals to tup2 plus tup1 print tup3. There we go. I just added all the values. You can do that. So as you can see, you can add tuples together and things like that. The thing about tuples is they are pretty interesting because they're a set data type, meaning that when I create a tup1 right here, I cannot change what is inside of it. I can't. Well, I can't do it basically. Yeah, I can't do it really. What I can do is I can add them together if I want to say, like I can't append it. I'm going to teach you what appending is soon, but I have to add it together, right? So, for example, I'll be like tup1 tup5 equals to 5,000, 50,000, and this is just some values I'm putting in there. But I'm going to make it a little bit more simple by, well, let's just say we'll call it the grocery list or something, right? We'll be like chicken, eggs, and bananas or something. And then I'll be like, okay, print tup5, right? But the only way I could change it, if I go all the way back here and change it manually, I cannot change it with any function. I can't write anything to change it. If I say tup5.append, see, there is no append. tup5.count class dot do all that stuff. I can count everything in it, but I cannot add anything into it. That's a problem. But what I can do is I can add it by creating a new tuple and saying, hey, I want to add in maybe apples or something. I have a tup4, that's a new thing. I'll say, here's tup6, tup4 plus tup5. Oops, where did I mess up? Okay, tup5 equals to that, print tup5, tup4 equals to that, tup6 equals to tup4 plus tup5. Right, so that's where I messed up. Should have realized. Done. Programming. Oh, I have to create a new tuple. Tup7. Oh, I have to define the value there first. So I have to say tup7 equal to tup5 plus tup4. And then I'll say print tup7. See, programming Python. And we can go back to the code to see where we can only concatenate strings, not tuple2 string. I see. So we can add them together, but we can't do something like that. I sort of messed up a little bit there, but I do apologize. Make sure to practice this. Create a few tuples, tup4, tup5. You can go on tup7, tup8, till tup20 if you want to. I would do 10, 20, whatever you want to get the basics of this. I want you to define a string, and I want you to put in parentheses, and then I want you to create a bunch of tuples. And yeah, you can't easily change it unless you want to change it manually. Tuples, they're usually just set like that. But now we will be moving on to lists. Now I love lists because lists can actually be changed. So we'll do list, or we'll do we can call our list whatever we want to. And I'm just creating kind of like a value right there. But usually, again, you put an underline there, underscore. Now we can say programming list, Python, Golang, and JavaScript. It's like we're creating a list for the best programming languages. Well, anyway, there we go. Now it's going to print that, right? Okay, so we got Python, Golang, and JavaScript. Well, that's great. Now we want to add something. We don't have to create another list and add it. We can't do that. But what we can do is append that and add in Kotlin. And then we could say, hey, print the new programming list that we just added something to, and I'll print Python, Golang, JavaScript, and Kotlin. And the way that works is because we, out of that last, is going to be going towards the last place in that area, which is really cool. But what we can also do is something similar to what we did before with the tuple. We can say list1, we could say list3 equals to C++. Let's see what else we want to do. Maybe Java and I'm just thinking we should put in there. Swift. And then we can do list3. Or we could do this too, by the way, guys. We don't have to necessarily create a value for it. I do that because it's actually the most effective way and everything like that. But you could do something like this. Print list3 plus programming list. And we just added everything together like that. And depending on where we put the, again, remember we talk about where you place and things like that, it goes from right to left. It goes from here to there. So now we know list3 is going to come first because we put it here first. And then programming list is up here. So we put that next to it. And that's how it goes. And that has something to do with some things I'm not going to talk about because that's just a bit advanced, but I could go into that in maybe like another tutorial. So we just created that. List3 equals to C++, and all that great stuff. All right, so we can move on now. Let's move on, and I want you guys to do is I want you guys to create some lists. List1, list2, list3, whatever you guys call programming list, programming underscore list, whatever you want. Create 10 of them, 20, whatever to create you comfortable. Make sure to put it into square brackets. That's how a list is defined. Tuple has parentheses. A list has square brackets, and it can be changed. A tuple cannot. This will be very important because they will ask you in an interview if you get a job. This you might want to write this down. I might put a link in the description for Python interview questions, and if I don't, you guys can look it up. They will ask you what are built-in data types, what are data types, and also what is the difference between a tuple and a list. A list has square brackets. A tuple has parentheses. A tuple cannot be changed, but a list can be changed. So that's the answer for that question that they will most likely ask you in the Python interview. But yeah. So I want you guys to create 10, 20 of these or whatever, and you guys can append it, you guys can change it up, things like that. And I will create a list here, another one just for the heck of it, and I will say 0, 10 PyCharm, just because whatever. And then I will do gonna be changing a little bit right now. Sorry about that, guys. I know I'm going against my own rules or whatever, but I'm just being a little bit funny here. I'm gonna do 2, and then I'm gonna do. Let's see. Okay, so what we did was we added everything down here, and list 5. There we go. So there we go. Counter list object. It's going to show you the place value of everything. It's going to count it. So you can see built-in method of count of list object is at that. That's where it's saved into the system itself. That's in like the space complexity in the. It's in somewhere in the computer. So that's where its actual place is. That literal place is at. Which is really cool. Just want to show you guys that. Okay. Now print list 5. Now, as you can see, that's how you remove something from a list, is you do dot remove. Now we can do a new list, list 6. And don't do your homework right now. I'm just going to be teaching you a few more things. I do apologize for that. Python, Linux, which is not a programming language, by the way. DevOps. Random tech buzzwords you usually hear. I might make a list of that. Make something like that. DevOps, Linux. Let's just put in some buzzwords that you all hear in the media. AI, quantum computing, things like that. People like to throw it around. You know, it's all buzzwords. I mean, people don't really understand the real meaning behind what's going on. But whatever. Pop, and we'll do 2, and then I'll do print list 6. So now we'll see what's going on. Okay, so what we did was we have Python, Linux, and DevOps is gone because what it does is it removed the second thing in the list. Now you're wondering, wait, isn't the second thing in the list Linux? No. You might want to write this down too. This is something you're going to be learning new, is that when you write something, it is automatically starting from 0. So if I say list 6 equals Python, Linux, DevOps, AI, quantum computing, Python is in the 0th place. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how it goes on because it's saved like that. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember that, guys. No matter what this is in, this is a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is funny is it's actually at 0. But yeah, it's literally at 0. So if I do list6.pop2, it's going to remove 0, 1, 2. Remember, guys, it's very simple, 0, 1, 2. It's going to remove the second thing in the list, which is going to be technically the third thing in the list, but this is just the way it is. That is how it does that, which is really great. You guys can, I want you guys to try all of these. I want you guys to create, I do apologize, 10 lists, just creating regular lists. And then after you're done with that, I want you guys to append that list, adding something new into that list. And whatever list you want, I want you guys to add that, do the append function 10 times. And after you're done with that, then I want you guys to, do this right here, the remove function. I want you guys to remove a few things from your list 10 times. I want you guys to do that 10 times. And then I want you guys to do this .pop function and remove it in the place. So if you want to remove, if you created something like this, list 7 equals to candies, rainbows, lollipops, whatever, it will remove. If I do list whatever 7.pop that, it will, and 2, it will be list candies, rainbows, lollipops. Lollipops will be the third thing it will be removing. So remember that I just taught everything. You guys can, do that, and I want you guys to do exactly that. 10 times this, 10 times that. I want you guys to possibly even add some of these 10 times of adding lists together and things like that, and removing it 10 times and pop 10 times. All right, and when you guys are done, you guys can go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done with that, come back to me, come back to the video, and we'll get started. So yeah. All right, so now that you guys are done with that, we can move on to the next thing, which is dictionaries. Now, dictionaries are really great. What a dictionary is, it's a set defined of values. Now, you know how we use lists with square brackets? and we used tuples with curly brackets, you can already see it's kind of like weirded out like that. You can see that when we ever do anything, it automatically already did this, by the way. It put the curly brackets here. Because it can read that it says dict1, it's like, oh, it's going to probably be a dictionary, right? So that is what you guys do. So this is the dictionary. You can put anything in it. Python. I keep on using the same values. Maybe I should just change something on there. Apples. There we go. Print dict1 apples Golang and Python. Isn't that great? I think it's great. And you can see how funny that is because it did that apples, Golang, and then Python. It did it in reverse. And that's because what it's really telling us is we need to define its place. Now, what does that mean? Now, if I do dict2 equals to 0, I'm defining the values. Now, when you define values in this, you don't use equals. You use something like this. It's a colon. So we're going to do, okay. See, we have to also put it in strings, remember that? And then we're going to put that there. And then we'll do equals to coding. And then we'll put the third thing, MacBook. There. Now we do print dict2. Let's see what happens. Python, coding, and MacBook. And it shows you also we put 0th place, that place, that place. It's putting in order because we're also indicating that 0 is that is that, and 2 is MacBook. That's a set defined of values. That's what a dictionary is. So, you know, it's very important. You know, we have lists of things. We want to print out a list, a tuple. You cannot add a tuple and a list together, just telling you that. And, you know, with a dictionary, it's just a set defined values. You want to, you know, define a bunch of things, and you can put it inside there. And it's really great, actually. And if you're wondering, okay, you could say 1. And then, there we go. 0, Python, 1, Dog, 2, coding. Print dict2 dot get /1. And then it'll bring us coding, right? Because we defined it. This is something really cool. What you guys can do is dict2.get 1, and then we print dict2.get that in 1. And it's gonna basically say, okay, I'm looking for 1. What is 1 defined as? Okay, 1 is coding. It's gonna bring out and it's gonna print out coding. So I want you guys to try doing something like this. Create a bunch of dictionaries. And remember what we did before with the value thing? It's going, we could say 0 or 1 or 2. And this time it works because it'll even show you 0 is Python, 1 is 2. And this is very similar to what its actual places in the index, 0, 1, 2. But if we didn't put that there, then yeah. But if we do, now we know, if we do 2, it'll bring out now we have coding. Now I want you guys to tell me, maybe in the comments or whatever, I want you guys to figure out what I did wrong here. I'll give you a few, you guys can pause the video. All right, well, what I did wrong is, you probably can see because of the code I did before there, is I did print dict2 pop 1, and now it's going to show me that it got rid of that. It got rid of MacBook. Now if I do print,
it's 0 hours.
dict2, it's going to do Python and coding, and it's going to get rid of MacBook because I got rid of that. It'll even print out, it's going to print out what I got rid of when I do print dict.pop2. Now that's really great. So I want you guys to do that. I want you to create a bunch of things with a defined, you could do whatever you want. Um, do something similar to this, create a bunch of dictionaries, 10 of them, and then I want you guys to do this get function, and then I want you guys to print that out, print whatever that, your dictionary is, dot get, the place value of that, and it's going to bring that out, and then I want you guys to do the pop function, and I want you guys to do this each 10 times, and go ahead, and you can pause it, and you guys can go ahead and come back. So we just went over dictionaries, and that is great. So now we can move on to something else. We can finally move on to something that I really wanted to go over actually, which is for loops. So now we're finally there. It's great. So what you guys are done with that? Great. For now we're gonna do for loop. So what I want you guys to do is follow along with me. For I in 0, 100, print I. Oh, well, what did we do wrong there? Well, that's what we did wrong. When you create a for loop, you don't want to do something like that, or even that, or even that. What you want to do is you want to do tab, because it needs to be like this. It needs to look like this, indented. Indentations are very important in Python as well as coding in general. They're going to ask you that, why, indentations and things like that. And, you want to make sure that indentations are done, especially in for loops and things like that. So for I in 0 to 10, print 0 to 10, and it's going to print 0, and then it's going to print 10. So what it's basically saying is, okay, so for I, we're saying that I is the variable here. In these values in this parentheses, print I, print whatever is inside there. So bring that out. And now it's going to bring out 0, and then it's going to bring out 10. And that's great. And that is great. But we can do for I and print I, or we could do print I times 10, and then it'll bring out 100. Because 0 times 10 is 0, and 10 times 10 is 100. You could do that as well. I want you guys to practice that, which is really great. For I and that, you can do that. And now we can move on. If you guys want to basically, find, if you have a bunch of numbers like, let's just say 10 to 100, and you guys are like, okay, maybe I just want to find out something else. You could do something like this. 0, 2, 10, print I, and it's going to bring out 0, 2, and 10, which is really great. So now we can move on to else if statements and things like that. For I in this amount of numbers, let me do something like that. Print I 0, 102. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And we can move on. And, okay, so for I in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Print I if I, now you can write if I is greater than 0, print 0 is the best. So now look, it says for I, in whatever this is, print I. If I is greater than 0, print 0 is the best. And everything in this is greater than 0. So it's going to say 0 is the best. Everything in there is saying that. So which is really great. I say I. Now we can move on. For I in 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and that. Print Python. And now I can do if I, whatever this is, I is less than 30, print Python is bad. Else, print Python is good. Now let's see. Now look, print Python, if I is less than 30, whatever than this, print Python is bad. Else, print Python is good. It's going to say print Python, Python. It says if I less than 30, print Python is bad. And then it's going to say print Python is good. And do that at the end. So, you can see. Now we can get rid of this. We can do list now if you in this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If x is greater than is less than 3, print yes code. Else if x is greater than 3, print no code. And else print coding is exploding. Now let's look. Okay, so what happened there? Now we could. Oh, okay, that's the problem. Oops, looks like we a little messed up there. All right, so basically, what you just need to know really is for I in 0, 100, 10, 100, print I. Print I. Equal to 10. Print I there. Oh yes, of course. But what we really need to do is just worry about this basic for loop. For I in 0, 10, 100, 1,000. Just do this basic for loop, and it'll list you like that. I do apologize for that. Now that I want you guys to try that out 10 times. I'll pause the video and then you guys can come back. All right. When you guys are done with that, we can move on. Now we can move on to while loops. So we'll say we'll say x equals 2, 0, 10, 100, 10,000, while okay, we're gonna actually do something else. We're gonna do the range for I in print I. I'll do while I in 0. Oh, sorry about that again. For I in that, print I. While I is equal, while I is greater than or equal to 100, print Python. We'll do, okay, we created the for loop, and this is a while loop. While I is less than, while I is greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0, print Python. And it's going to do that. If I is ever greater than 100, print Python is good. Now let's try this out. Okay, so look. All right. Let's go down. The while loop is going on. It's just keep on being generated, basically. Okay, so while yeah. So that's while loops. I want you guys to do that a few times. But that's something you don't have to worry about too much right now. And I'm just going to be clearing this. There we go. And going to be going over a few more concepts today. So we did that. Now we can go over basically, we went over the else statements, if else statements, things like that. We can go over Well, actually, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. That's some basic Python. I will be making a part two to this, but for now, that's all really you need to know. Don't worry about it. I will be making a new video soon, covering more topics like that. And yeah, I hope that you guys learn a lot from this today. And yeah, I hope that you have a great day. And yeah, keep on coding.